Thank you for being with us. My name is Jennifer, and I'm the director of our Center for Teaching and Mentoring here at MTSU. And I'm actually sitting at an airport right now, flying back from the Mentoring Institute in New Mexico. So I've asked my friend and colleague, Dr. Lando Carter, to speak to us today about backward design. This is an area that Lando has teaches regularly with his students and research. So Lando and I joke that he could probably give this spiel in his sleep at this point because he's talked about it so much. So, Dr. Carter, you take it over and tell us all about backward design.
Sure. Thanks so much. And we really live by one central question with the center, and it's basically how can we help? So just know that that's really what we're all about. And today we dive into this thing called backward design. So ask questions at any time, but we're going to have you walk through each stage one at a time. And we'll actually have you apply each stage one at a time as well. So backward design for me really speaks to this line right here. So great teaching is designed with the end in mind. So we start from this stance to basically avoid years of errors that I made that were needless. And so starting with the end in mind is such a foolproof way to teach well from the onset. And I'm still learning to do this, still trying to take my own advice from this. So great teaching is designed with the end in mind. That's our line for today. And then we'll take a look at the three stages or steps to backward design. So we start with outcomes, that's stage one. So we want to know what students must know and be able to do. That's where we start, even though we often start by filling class time. So much of my teaching was wasted basically by just filling time. I need to teach Monday, Wednesday, Friday. I need to have them something to do Monday, Wednesday, Friday. But if we start with outcomes first, we can make that time matter so much more for students. So once you decide your outcomes, then you can decide in stage two, well, how are they going to show me that they know and can do the things I set out for them to know and do? And the very last thing that you do, even though it's the first thing in many cases, is the lessons, the actual minutes, the contact hours with the students. It's the very last thing that we do in our design. So it's ironically often a very starting point, but we do it last, and those lessons will be made to last if we do it in this three-step order. So there's your three stages to backward design, or some people call it understanding by design. And we're going to walk through each one, and we'll have you try out each stage along the way today together. So we'll pause at each stage, take any questions you want to, but we also have a chance for you to write out a few things and try them on for size, okay? So stage one really is about outcomes and answering one key question. Now, this question right here is everything. This is where all good design begins. So we begin everything with what must students know and be able to do by the end of the lesson. Maybe it's a unit or maybe it's an entire course. It really depends on what level you're starting at. If you feel more comfortable taking a small block of your time, go there. But really, we should be thinking about the whole course in its entirety. Then we're looking at individual units, projects, lessons. It really works no matter what you do. So the best thing I can suggest for you is to get you a bunch of half-cut note cards. You see them in my hand here, and you write down everything that they must know and be able to do. Cast a wide net. Be selfish. Make it a wish list, if you will. But then you can actually hold the cards in your hand and you can move them around, or you can go digital and start building the DNA of your class from the little digital sticky note that you see there. I still go old school paper in my hands. I like the chance to lay it out on a table, move it around. But as you can see, the inklings of the class are already here, the things I think are so important. But once you do this, you can then decide, okay, some things are actually not as important as others. Some things actually can be bundled together. Some things are nice to know versus must know or be able to do. And one thing I want to do is shout out a book for you, and it's called Grading for Growth. And I learned something only about 2 years ago in reading this that really struck me and stuck with me. And basically, the authors here are two math profs up in Michigan. And they said, if you ever feel, hmm, maybe this is too much, it is. You've already answered your own design question because you have to remember how little the novice knows. They know so little about what you know so well. So a lot of your cards end up you sacrifice them because that's for someone else to teach maybe in the next class or the class before you, or it is simply nice to know and it's not a must know and be able to do. So we start with our cards, we sift and sort, we get down to some core, maybe 5 to 7 core outcomes. And that's when you're off to the races to do a really great course design. So stage one, outcomes, we have our same question here. I'm going to give you a sample outcome, and then I want you to write one for yourself, and we'll do a little pause, okay? So the sample outcome I'm going to give you to run as an example through the whole talk today is this. And it's going to lead up to why we do this so well. These things, if you answer this question and set your outcome first, it's going to give you this benefit. You're going to avoid what's called the blind coverage and hands-on minds-off learning twin sins of design. So if you get your outcomes set, the one I'm going to show you here in a second is going to be an example to guide you. If you set your outcomes first, you're going to avoid what's called blind coverage, meaning that I just am marching through a textbook. I'm marching through a novel. I really don't know where we're going except we're going forward. That's one of the major, major sins, as Wiggins and McTighe call it, of design. Now, the other one, if you skip stage one, you can fall prey to what's called hands-on, minds-off learning, meaning we're excited, we're engaged. Are we learning? I'm actually not sure. And that was the cardinal sin of my teaching career was hands-on, minds-off learning. I wanted students to have fun and be engaged. They can have fun and be engaged, but I should know my outcomes first, okay? So you set that outcome, and here's our example. I can analyze, compare, contrast, and vet sources for validity, quality, usefulness, and relevance. So this is a old outcome that I still believe in when I was teaching freshman 1010 writing here at MTSU. So that's the example I'm going to set for you to run the whole rest of our talk. We'll kind of keep coming back to it. And I'm going to give you an example of how to follow up on it next. But what I want you to do is take a moment to write one just for yourself as a prototype to run with for yourself through the stages today. So just take a moment, write down one outcome for your own class of your choice that students must know or be able to do by the end. And if you want to, you can put your outcome in the chat and we can see it for the whole team. All right, if we got our outcome set, what kind of classes are we teaching for our audience today? Here we go. Let's see what you got. Can you guys see my screen? Okay, so Cody's got one. Here we go. Okay, good. All right, so cybersecurity, very good, very good. Okay, oh yeah, very good, very good. Look, these are so specific, concrete. These are great. So that's the one I want you to take. You took it right from your syllabus, and I want you to kind of run with that one throughout the whole time together here today, okay? So I'm going to give you an example of this outcome in action here just in a moment. All right, so keep that outcome on hand, and then we're going to run through yours too. So let's go back to our 3 stages. So stage 1, outcomes. Now we're going to move to evidence. And then lastly, we'll go to lessons. So for evidence, I need to think about a way to get some proof of learning of that outcome that I gave you as an example. So let's take a look at what I came up with. So a lot of this outcome that I set really resonates with this book by Sam Weinberg. So he's a leader in what's called lateral reading and fighting fake news. So his book is called Why Learn History When It's Already on Your Phone. So it's kind of a provocative title. And you should absolutely learn history, even though it's on your phone, by the way. And so his book speaks to that. So there are two TKO quotes, total knockout quotes I want to share with you that frame this outcome and why I want to make it part of my class. So digital snake oil salesmen compete with reliable sources for our allegiance. And if that's not true, even more every day, I don't know what would be. And then secondly, he says the internet teems with made to order history by pseudo scholars who invent footnotes and Photoshop images to shore up fraudulent claims. So this is literally happening as we speak in real time. And we see that this creates nothing but chaos and discord. And I love that he uses the word teams, the internet teams, Teems, meaning that it's literally overflowing with things that just aren't true, but they look true. They look quality and they look valid. So there's a real crisis here, and I want my students to make sure they can spot fake news and find good resources to write their papers around. So I'll return to our outcome or a key question in our outcome. So I can analyze, compare, contrast, all those great things. Then we want to try to play the match game. This is stage two. So once you set your outcome, you've got your stage two, where we're going to decide how will they show us that they know it and can do it, right? So I have my outcome, and then I have all the myriad options of how they may show us how that might be something they could do. So work with me here and help me decide, what should I pick? These are only a few samples. What's the best ways, in your view, these options or others, that my students could show me proof of that being in their hands, they know it and can do it? So jump in there with me and see what you think. What would be the best matchup? And there's not really a right answer either. There's actually multiple right answers. All right. So I actually chose a group project. So it's not the only way to do it. Actually, you could totally write an essay on it, take a quiz on it, multiple quizzes. You actually can do combinations of these things for stage two or the evidence stage. So let's take a look at what we came up with. So I tasked my students to build what's called a source vetting system, meaning that they actually created a mechanism through which to throw sources into and have it come out and say, ding, good or reliable. So each group met together and they worked to create these artifacts. So this group created the Radical Resource Ranker. As you can see, they created this all on their own, with me just standing on the side, nudging them along and helping coach them. They decided that this score up to 24, the better. So if they encountered a source and they could run it through these criteria, they could say that it's really, really good. So these students really made it fun too in creating their product. So that's group one. Group two created what's called the DAC track system. So that's all their criteria for what makes a good source, what they think makes it trustworthy, timely, all those things. This next group created the no source remorse infographic with a do and don't checklist as they navigate their sources for their research projects and their writing. All really great stuff. All really great stuff. And then in the end, we actually compared and contrast the student made, group made projects with the professional sources here and what they say makes a good source and how you could trust or what you should be wary of. Okay. So now I've set my outcome. I actually have a blueprint for where I want to go get evidence of that through stage two, and that is the source vetting system project. So stage two, now it's back to you. So we revisit our outcome. I want you to try to match it with an assessment or a set of assessments. It might actually be several, okay? So you got your outcome, and take a moment to think about, what is the matchup? What is the match game that makes a good match between your outcome and a way to get evidence of their learning? So think on that for just a moment, and then we'll do a little sharing. And when you get ready, feel free to throw something into the chat or go ahead and hop on the mic and tell us about your outcome and how you decided to match up.
Hey, Lando, can you hear me?
Yes, come on, tell me.
Yeah, so mine with the apply cybersecurity strategies to secure internet usage, mobile devices, and digital communications. I mean, I would probably split those each into their own three, right? So secure internet usage as one, module, mobile devices another, digital communications is another. But if I'm going with apply, I think in Bloom's, I'm looking for things like practice.
Mhm.
So either an essay in the form of a hands-on project for the student or a group project in the classroom, maybe, where they can take the practices we've learned in classes, the strategies we learned in classes, and then apply them together or on their own.
That makes great sense to me. And you know, what I love about it is you're talking in these maybes where you're really considering a lot of different options and you're weighing one better than the other, maybe, or maybe two are actually helpful. What's great about this part is you can get a buddy and team up and do a sounding board with each other and say, hey, what do you think best fits my outcome and a way to get evidence? And then maybe they can help nudge you to something that fits a little better, because sometimes the fit is just a little bit off, and then students struggle a little bit. But you're in here talking it through us. That's such a great idea. So thank you for sharing that. And if anybody else wants to share their matchup, let us know.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, Catherine, go ahead.
Awesome. So this is for a course I'm designing for the spring.
Okay.
It's an automated lighting course, so really in the tailing to the entertainment industry. And one of the things I want to focus on is how to program various light boards. So when they go out in the industry, they have that hands-on skill. And so that's why my outcome was like setting up, organizing, and programming lights to a song. And I have two different ideas
Mhm.
that I want to implement for this. The first one's like a proficiency. So when we start learning that light board, they get like a workbook where it's much like a lighting designer talking to them and they have to type out and execute that design. So it tailors to both like the commands they're punching, like channel 1 at full, channel 2 in blue, but also near the end, it gets into the designer who's like, I want a blue stage wash. I want the specials to flash on the beat. So they're also trying to think through the commands themselves. And then they would come in, actually program with myself or my counterpart as designers. So they're actually doing it with a live person as well. And then the other project would be they're given a song by a band and they get free reign to create a design for it, but they're putting that in the program, thinking through, I see this for the design, how do I execute that in the board?
Great. Look, you're doing such intentional thinking, both of y'all, on how am I going to get the best evidence that they actually know and can do this thing that I said was so important to their um, current place in their program, and then maybe out even into the real world, as you're saying here too, into the actual profession. That's what this is all about, is that I'm not just doing random stuff day to day. In fact, I've started with the end in mind and I've worked my way backward through that arrow. So this is great. Absolutely. And I love the idea that you're breaking down the outcome even into kind of like subpoints, because you have to remember how little the novice knows, how few skills they have yet until they take your class. And now they know so much more and have so many more skills. And then they've decided to become a major, in your field, if not already. But they're trying to sign up for the next class that you teach. That's such a great relationship builder. Is actually the way your class is designed so well. A lot of times we talk about relationships and getting to know you, getting to know your name, your interests. Those are great things. But how about the class is well organized and I'm easy to talk to and I'm approachable and I'm helping you get it done. That's another great relationship builder that um, backward design can give you. So we have our tentative run here at evidence. Okay. Let's take a look at our next stage. And this will give us the full picture of backward design in a small little run at an outcome that you've set for yourself. Okay. So you've got your outcome set. We have a tentative footing and what we think might be the best way for them to show that they know it can do. And the very last thing is the actual lesson plans, the way you're going to spend your 85 minutes on Tuesday, Thursday, your 3 hours on Monday night, whatever it might be, or maybe you're even online with your students. Okay. So this is our last section, last stage. So we'll go back to our outcome and our key question. This is the true north of good teaching right here. This one question, if you can just get this answered, okay, you're going to start off so much stronger. So there's our sample outcome that we worked with before. And then the question we bring out, even sort of rhetorically, is, well, gosh, how many lessons will it take for students to achieve this outcome? So they have to do all of this. I have such a varying range of experienced or not experienced students in this way. How can I design a series of lessons that progress like a stepladder up to success for students? I keep thinking of the old Price is Right show, like the Yodelahu guy, like goes up to the top of the mountain. That's what I want students to do. Just this nice little incline up, up, up towards student success. So now I've got to really pin down, gosh, how many days in my first 3 weeks of class or middle of the class, or perhaps I've got a project that runs the entire semester. Some people design a class that way too. How much time and tries can I give students to be successful? That's what we really want to think about when we're doing our stage 3, our last stage of lessons here. So we did this project and we did about 2 weeks of class. So that's Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 2 weeks. And that was enough. I think it was a little quick, but not too quick. So, sometimes you can lag a little bit. You're spending a little too much time, but certainly you can go too fast as well. So gauging that is really, really tough. And it's something you want to ask your students about at each contact point. Say, how are we doing? Are we going too fast? We're going too slow? Have them give you feedback on how to progress in the class. You may end up taking one class session and cutting it because you don't need it. You're moving forward. You may add a session and then recalibrate your schedule based on the actual users of your class experience. So we did this in about 2 weeks. At the end, they showcased their work and they were just thrilled with their own work and then what everybody else came up with. As you saw, the 3 examples, they were all very different. So people really were clapping, like they were like, this is so cool. And then we used those systems for vetting sources for the rest of the semester. And then they roll into English 1020, the next class, ready to do research. That was what I was really took pride in, is they were ready. I made sure they were ready for what was next because I started with the end in mind. So thinking about your own outcome before you kind of sketch out how much time you want to dedicate, I want to just give you a real world example of how learning really does take a lot of time and a lot of tries. Okay. So this is my example for you. Any stick shift drivers in here? Can y'all drive it?
Unfortunately not.
Yeah. It's kind of a lost art, if you will. But notice the outcome is at the top, successfully driving a stick shift car. I mean, I'm talking about actually being able to really do it. So we can think about how we break down all those many and myriad skills that are involved in that one outcome, and it is a lot of stuff. It is a lengthy list. I mean, now we're getting into stalling. So I actually failed my driver's test at 16 because I insisted on taking my stick shift truck that I really couldn't drive well. And I got it into reverse and stalled it in the parking lot and killed it 3 times in the parking lot. And the lady just said, honey, you need to go on home. And that was very embarrassing. And I cried afterward. Once I got alone, it was very embarrassing. My dad made fun of me because I worked construction with him. And I walked in the next day and he had already told him that I'd failed. And he said, where's your license? And everyone just cracks up in the break room. And so it was just so mortifying and embarrassing. So I took my mom's car, a week later and passed it, made 100%, right? Because it was a regular car, but I just wasn't ready. I just hadn't had enough time and tries. And we're not even done with the list here, guys. Take a look. Oh, now we're stalling on a hill. Yeah, that's probably the worst one. My buddy, Dr. Tipton, who used to work here, he's a twin. He lives in Knoxville, and he was taught by his father on those Knoxville hills up by campus. Just threw him in the car one day and said, who's first? Had him parked on that hill, with the parking brake on. Yeah, don't do that to your students. That's too steep of an incline. That is an undesirable difficulty. And then we even get further here. Now we're talking about shifting. And then we haven't even talked about reverse. There are so many things involved in here to learn, to practice, to get it wrong, to recover, to try again. That's what I want you to think about when you get to stage 3. When you're thinking about your lessons, please, I beg you to give your students enough time and tries to really do well and to learn the thing that they're on their way to knowing as a budding professional in your field, as a newly minted major in cybersecurity or whatever it might be. So please, that'd be my personal plea to you is make sure we build in enough time and tries to let students really give it a couple of shots to get this thing that is very tough for them. And then they're going to be so grateful that you gave them that time and those tries and the chances to recover, and to learn from errors and failure. That should be a big part of your design as you start with outcomes assessment and then how to budget your time. So please build in time for errors, for failure. I know computer science professors on campus here that build in errors to their daily work. They actually require students to turn in what's called compile errors, meaning that they're writing their code and they hit compile and the computer says error, can't do that. And so they actually turn in those error records along with their working code once they get it to work. And it's such a celebration inside of the lessons where you're allowed to make mistakes, take a detour, come back and recover. So for you, you're thinking about your outcome. There's our key question, our true north of good teaching right there. What must students know and be able to do by the end? That was our sample that we worked with. But then question, what makes a great lesson or lessons? I'll answer it. It is the ones that give them those outcomes in their hands, where they can hold it in their hands, proof of learning, and they're at that successful road. So our last question for you then is sketch for yourself just for a moment. How many lessons do you think it's going to take to get that outcome achieved for real for your students in cybersecurity and then in the lighting class? Okay, so let's take a moment to think on that. We'll do a little share and then we'll start to open up for our wide open Q&A. So remember, you're the expert. They're the novices on their way to becoming that expert like you, maybe. What are you thinking? How many lessons? How much time would it take? Okay, we got it in the chat here or on the mic. Let us know what you think.
I'm
Catherine,
thinking, yeah, I'm thinking 3 lessons. I'm in the 3-hour time block that meets once a week.
nice.
And so I'm dividing it into like the first day is all of the basics. This is how you patch the lights. This is the layout. This is how you do a lot of the more basic commands. And then that's when I would introduce like the proficiency workbook so they could get started on it. If they want to try and like push themselves, they can keep working ahead. But then we come back the next class and we do magic sheets, which is laying everything out in a visual way to help with speed of programming and also review what have we covered, what questions did you guys have, where did you get stuck? And
I
that,
love this. Where did you get stuck? You need to keep that for sure.
yeah. And then the third week is more of like all of the advanced. So here's all of the movement we can add to it. Here's how we keep everything neat and organized. And again, like where are you guys stuck? Where can I help? What do you need me to review to help you be successful? And then that way, when we come back that 4th week, we can do the proficiency and they've had the time and the skills to gain that. And then they have that with someone there. And while it's a proficiency testing their knowledge, it's also someone there right away being like, no, this is where your error is. This is how you do it. So they get that immediate feedback right away as well.
That's great. What you just did right there is literally what's called a learning progression. You just mapped it out right there and it moved in that step ladder one at a time. That's so great. And I love this idea of, hey, where are you getting tripped up? Where are you getting stuck? Oh, I'm getting stuck over here. And even the fact that you asked that question is an environmental cue that mistakes are okay in this class. In fact, we need those to navigate the next few lessons. So please keep that as a card in your pocket to play, which is, hey, where are your stickiest points? Some of the elementary teachers call it muddiest point. And then you go ahead and have them tell you that, and then you help them have that not be such a sticking point. That's a great thing to hear. So shout out to you for that for sure. Cody, did you have an idea maybe what you're thinking on your learning progression for your lessons?
Well, yeah, and maybe this is something that we can talk about offline more towards this class in particular that I'm teaching right now, because I teach it in two separate modalities. There's
Yeah.
the online version of it, and there's the in-person version of it. From my perspective, the in-person version, the apply cybersecurity strategies would take 2 weeks probably to, like, first, here's the basics, here's kind of some basics for cybersecurity that you need to know, and here's how we pull the strategies out of those, right? So we have like a triad in cybersecurity, so confidentiality, integrity, and availability of resources, data, and stuff like that. So like, what strategies are we going to take to protect our confidentiality? Well, maybe we encrypt something. Well, how are you going to go about encrypting data on your mobile devices? And I think it would take at least 2 weeks to get that to the basics. But then I worry about my more advanced students, since it's a 1300 class, and maybe some people are coming in with experience from high school. So how do I keep them engaged while
Right.
the others are learning? And so sorry, in my head, I'm thinking I'm getting a little bit away from the true north, because I'm trying to think of how to keep it engaging for everyone.
Yeah.
But
Well, we can go ahead and give you some strategies for that, because once you've designed the lessons that you think the vast majority of your students will be successful in, you can actually have some of your more advanced students, if they are apt and willing and ready, to help coach others. That's one way to design for that in advance. And another option is for those advanced learners, you can create what's called a challenge task. So a challenge task is something you've built in advance that is more than they were going to explore in the bounds of the sort of the game you've built to play. And the challenge task is literally a challenge to you. It's an I dare you to add this feature, to explore this counterpoint, to take on this little extra level of rigor in the class or in this project. So that's two quick ways to help folks who move a little quicker. And then everyone's eligible for those two things. Also, you'll find that some people are advanced in the early part of the class, and then another crop of people, they become advanced later in the class because you're switching topics or you're switching projects, and they happen to have a background in this, but not the thing at the beginning. So you always keep that door open for having someone co-teach with you and facilitate learning with others. And then the challenge task is always something to have on hand. It's a very motivating and engaging thing for students that way. Yeah.
yeah, I think I like the challenge task. I'll go ahead and start trying to
Yeah.
add those into some
Challenge
of my.
task fires people up. It really does. And you can, if you've got your outcome set first, then you got your evidence. You say, okay, what's this next extra layer of evidence that I could build out and have at the ready in my lessons? And you literally have it sometimes on a physical card, and you just slide it onto the table and say, here's your challenge task. You walk away, and they're just like, oh man, here we go. What am I going to get this time? So you can, the intentionality behind all this really is one of our big takeaways today. Is I'm intentional about all these things so that every student I meet and encounter gets what they need, and then maybe then some a little bit more. So we have a chance to sketch out our outcome, maybe a way to play the match game, and then, well, gosh, how many times and tries can I give them in the time I've been given to make sure that they are successful? So backward design made easy. We see that those three stages really can take years of errors off of your teaching that I did and I had to endure because I just didn't know this. I was literally filling time versus making the most of my time aimed at outcomes in advance. So our stages are stage one, outcomes. What must students know and be able to do by the end? Next, stage two, evidence. How will I know that they know it can do? And then lastly, lessons. Stage three, how will I make the most of my time every time? So thank you all so much. We'll pause the slideshow there to open up for any questions you have for me about design or anything you need help with. We're here to help.
I think perhaps I'll need to schedule a meeting with you, maybe more
Yes, please.
more in depth for the class, to be honest.
That's wonderful. Please know that the CTM, we will sit down with you. We will help you map out your outcomes, select your evidence or multiple pieces of evidence. The book Grading for Growth, for example, is still one of my favorites because he says, Talbot and Clark rather say that some things are so important in your class, they need to be recertified, meaning that you tested them at the beginning, and then by the end, you need to see it again. I need to see that you can do this lighting board more than once because it's that important to the features of what we do in our field, the foundations of what we do as folks in that field. So yeah, I mean, we can help you map out multiple ways of collecting evidence for both formal and informal for evidence of learning. And then we can help you sketch out your lessons so that you can pace the class well, so that you can catch yourself before you've actually planned too much, or maybe you're coming up short a little bit. We can help you plan those things in advance in the center. It's one of our favorite things to do.
Thanks, Lando. If I'm brand new to backward design, and this is very overwhelming to me because it's, just blowing my mind, what would be your advice for a Cody or a Catherine or a Jennifer? I mean, you've given us the framework, you've given us the foundation, but what would be your advice to someone who's newer to teaching on embracing backward design in our teaching?
So the first thing to do is to get you some very high-tech half-cut note cards. So take you some index cards, cut them in half, get you a stack, and just start writing out your wish list, all the things you want your students to know and be able to do, and start there. And then you lay those cards out in that sort of a panoramic view and have a buddy come in and say, hey, what do you think I could actually pull off? What do you think I could really make sure the students know and can do by the end? And then you can start sorting and sifting the cards. That's where you start. That's the first step to a great design without even really having a lot of experience.
Thanks, Lando. And if you're not a fan of the old school index cards, then you can do, notes in your phone, like as you're thinking about it. There's even a whiteboard in Teams, like you can access a whiteboard and do little digital post-it notes
Yep.
for your courses. You can use AI to generate a list of those, and then you could
Right.
also use AI to do a first round of learning outcomes based on those conceptual ideas. There's all kinds of ways, but Lando is so great, and Lando makes himself available for sorry, again, I'm at the airport, for individual consultation. So Cody, I appreciate you saying, hey, I'd love to schedule a follow-up time with you. I think that'd be really beneficial.
For sure. And like I said, the physical cards, I love them because you can move them around, but the digital cards can be done that way as well. It really, really is a foolproof plan to help you get started. But I'll also say lastly that designing alone is very lonely. So please, try to team up with somebody in your department, another colleague. It doesn't even have to be someone in that department either. It could be someone who doesn't know anything about it. And they can actually help be a buck stop for kind of over planning a class, over promising a class. So getting out of your head, whether it's on the cards or with somebody else or both, is a great idea as well. So I want to say thank you to Cody, to Catherine. We really do love this work, and our true north for the center really is how can we help? So please let us know how we can help, and we'll be there for you. Okay.
Yeah, thanks, Lando, and thank you, Catherine and Cody. I've already emailed all of your respective department chairs, giving you some shout out, a little props for taking time on a Friday to be here. We really appreciate your participation and your willingness to kind of upscale your teaching. Have a great Friday, everybody. Thanks again, Lando.
Thank you all
Thanks for
so much.
hosting this.
Bye-bye.